Hey, Fort Stewart-Hunter Army Airfield. I'm Bryan Lunn with the Fort Stewart's Public Affairs Office. And to my left, I have Mr. Dan Klippstein, Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff. Welcome to Coastal Georgia, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for asking. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Well, we're glad to have you. Before we even get into this, I want to say thank you for not only taking the time to sit down with me, but come visit Fort Stewart. You know, that's very important for us right now.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate the opportunity. I was going to say that while I've never been to Fort Stewart, my first trip here, I'm not a stranger to the third ID.
Yes, sir.
I did, as a young lieutenant, I was a member, I was in the Rock of the Marne Division, but when it was in Germany.
Yes.
So a number of years ago, but really enjoyed my time there.
I thought it was especially interesting as we were coordinating this visit that you wanted to come to Fort Stewart. Why did you believe that was so important?
I think it's important to get out and take a look at our installations. You know, the challenge is that you can see, you get a different perspective when you sit in the Pentagon, and that has one set of metrics when you see that from where you are. But when you get down to an installation and you can actually see what's on the ground, you look at the barracks, you look at the child development centers, you see the state of the infrastructure, you talk to the soldiers and the families, the civilians that are working here. What is it that they're seeing on their installations? What's helping them? What do they need?
Yes, sir.
And while that does not necessarily directly always result in an outcome, but you take back a perspective. And you know, there's kind of a little bit of a saying, any day out of the Pentagon's a good day, regardless of the weather. So, you know, but the idea is to get a perspective. What's going on our installations? And I know the chief, the secretary, and other folks do a lot of traveling around. But when you're in the installation business, it's also helpful for us to see and then take back those perspectives and use those to help us frame the things that we do for policy, the things that we do for programming, the discussions that we have with senior leaders and with our counterparts and within the installation enterprise and OSD. And you know, my boss, General Vereen, also ends up going up onto the Hill and testifying in front of Congress, so he can take some of those perspectives with him to talk to congressmen and senators about what the needs of our Army and our Army installations are and how that translates to support to soldiers and their families and the civilians, and to the beneficiaries that rely on services of our installations, like Gold Star families and Soldiers for Life.
Yes, sir. And so to that same tune, how do you believe your office not only contributes to the readiness of the Army, but to the quality of life for our soldiers and our families?
Yeah, so great point. Our mission, you know, and we have you know, every organization has a mission statement, every organization has a vision statement. And so part of our mission statement really is to lead the integration across the Army enterprise for things like to modernize our installations, to enable the quality, enhance the quality of life of our installations, to enable our installations to support training, mobilization, readiness, and if necessary, project power from that installation. So you know, that's part of our mission statement, and the vision that we have really is we want the best people to be part of our team to deliver those capabilities and to deliver those programs and policies and resources so that individuals at the installation level have the tools they need to do the job that they need to do. So what do? We, you know, from a department perspective, one of the biggest things we do is garner resources. Each year we get about $20 billion worth of Army budget authority, you know, which is about 10 to 11% of the Army's budget. And then we apply that across all of our installations globally. And that really has to be spread to look at military construction projects. It gets spread to do upgrades of barracks and other facilities. It pays for the base operating services. I mean, everything from gate guards to you know, maintenance of grounds, child care development centers, MWR, the base services, sexual assault, sexual harassment services that are provided, financial counseling services that are provided to families.
Yes,
so all of that goes to trying to spread that money across all our stations to need. And our job is to help assess where you know, how we should allocate those, and then that money goes down to the four-star commands to be distributed. But our job is to show the need at the department level for how we support the soldiers and the families here, not just at Fort Stewart, but across our Army writ
Yes, sir.
large.
So providing quality housing for our soldiers and families does remain a top priority. So what lessons have we learned from privatized housing that can make privatized barracks more viable?
So, great question. We've done a lot over the years looking at privatized housing. I think that the lessons that we've learned is our ability to communicate with our partners. Number one, we have to have transparent communications with our partners. The second thing, I think, the lesson that we learned with that privatized housing was the result of a tenant bill of rights. And there were 15 items in that tenant bill of rights that put responsibilities both on the individual and on the privatized partner. So we looked, and then the third thing was staying engaged with the chain of command. Having the chain of command remain engaged and not feel like, well, there's a contract between the soldier and the privatized partner, the chain of command has no influence or responsibility, which could be further from the truth, because being engaged is necessary. Through the installation commanders and the senior commanders, many things have changed over time. So if you look at if you use the privatized housing model and the things that are improving out of that, because we've made a lot of changes over the years, much still needs to be done. Okay, there's still a lot of work, and those are reflected in the surveys that are done every year. Some are better than others, but by and large, we are working with our partners to improve. But when you take a look at that from a privatized barracks perspective, it gets a little bit different.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of conversation about do we need to do privatized barracks for soldiers. We're talking about building a pilot program to test that out, to see what that would do. Those lessons would still apply. There'd still have to be some type. If we go down that road, we have to find the right partner. We have to put the right controls in place to ensure that the soldiers that are living in those barracks are getting the best quality, and that our ability to ensure the chain of command still has the ability to function within those privatized barracks. So I think there was an article that was probably many folks may have read a couple of months ago that talked about maybe doing a pilot project at Fort Irwin, given the challenges of there and the needs. So that's something that the Army is looking at. I know Congress has asked us to look at it. I think the other thing I would say is, aside from just the privatized piece, what are we doing to improve our barracks right now?
Yes, sir.
On our installations? And so we're putting a lot, about the Chief and the Secretary have testified that we're putting about $2.1 billion a year into our barracks, whether it's military construction, sustainment and restoration, modernization dollars to improve the quality of the barracks to address the challenges that soldiers have. Congress has recently directed that we also have barracks managers, civilian barracks managers, and so part of that is they've allocated, they've told us that we have to have a minimum of one per installation. So that's about 75. That's going to be 75 barracks managers that we're going to hire that are civilians that are going to help manage our barracks inventories. We are in the process of looking at how to perhaps expand that and help figure out how to, given the resources that we have, given the situation of our barracks, how do we employ those folks to continue to give us the best possible outcomes and the best quality barracks for our soldiers. But looking at privatization, getting back to your point about privatization, we still have a ways to go before we actually we get the pilot and then we take a look and see, because any pilot will give you an idea of what the future might look like.
Yes, sir. So as you're aware, Fort Stewart-Hunter Army Airfield is the largest Army installation east of the Mississippi River. We're home to over 288,000 acres of land where our soldiers are able to train, mobilize, and even deploy. So why do you believe it is important for our Army to preserve this presence?
Yeah, no, look, I think one of the challenges that we have as an Army is because we're CONUS-based, we have to project power. So we have a small footprint overseas. The opportunity here at Fort Stewart gives you the land to train, to potentially mobilize, and you have proximity to sea and airports to project that power off out of the United States if we're required to do that, whether it's in crisis or conflict. So I think where you are at Fort Stewart, the opportunity to train, I mean, we go back and take a look at our history, and why would we put installations where they were situated was to allow the Army to have training ground.
Yes, sir.
and the opportunity to train and to not necessarily impact the local population. So I think what you have here at Fort Stewart is a great opportunity. You got the land to train. You have the proximity to project power and to get to places that allow you to either deploy through sea or air, and it's in a great location.
Yes, sir. Speaking of location, 70% of our population does live outside the post. So how does the challenge of providing quality of life initiatives to all impact your office?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that we do is we manage the quality of life programs, and we have a quality of life task force and campaign plan at the department level. And there's about 6 lines of effort that we are working through to ensure that quality of life programs, whether it's support for spouse employment or PCS, medical care, EFMP or exceptional family member programs, barracks and housing, all these things are part of our quality of life campaign. But I think the biggest challenge is for us is communicating the availability of these programs and what they do to soldiers and families. You know, every installation is a little bit different, but many of the programs are the same. And the quality of life programs that we spend an awful lot of time working on the policies, getting the resources and pushing those resources down to the lowest possible level for execution is a job one for at least over 100 of our folks right now. And so I would tell you that our ability to ensure that the soldiers and the families know what's available to them, everything from financial counseling to child care to exceptional family member systems and processes, is so important. The other part of that too is, you know, what are we doing with the local community to help improve quality of life for those, particularly that are off post as well, that live a distance away and may not be able to always come to the installation. I understand you got quite a number of folks that live, you know, 35, 40 minutes away, and so that's a pretty good drive to come in. How are we working with the local communities? And we have intergovernment service agreements. We have public-private partnerships that we're trying to develop with the community, with the installation to help them at the department level to move those through for approval to improve the outreach to soldiers and families. But I think, again, the biggest challenge and what we try to do is help installations communicate those services that are available to families and soldiers when they arrive, and then particularly for soldiers that are transitioning in different phases of their life, in terms of if they're getting married, they're having children, that there are programs that can help them and services that can help them manage their finances and find support. So I think, you know, whether you're on post or off post, the hardest folks to reach really are the ones that are off post. It's the communications that we have to have a campaign to draw them in, and I think that it starts when they first arrive at an installation, and the installation is able to communicate and show them the benefits of those programs.
Yes, sir. And I have one final question for you today. From your foxhole, what do you believe are the Army's biggest challenges, and how does your office plan to address them?
Yeah. So I think the Chief and the Secretary have been very clear. The biggest challenge that we have as an Army is recruiting. Everybody has a role in that. And where does the installation fit in that piece? If our installations are of quality and they're improving, we're modernizing them, we're putting resources into them, they show up as part of a process that we can say, look, we can recruit young soldiers to come into the Army and say, look, here's what life in the Army is about. Okay, there's negative components to that are always out there. We got to have a counter narrative that shows what the best sides of our Army are for soldiers. Our focus is to help that, is to improve the installations to make them world class, and that helps the recruiting effort. It also helps the retention effort. So resources are important. I think once you peel that back a little, you know, peel all that back, and with the recruiting piece, for us it's about making sure that we have the resources. Because the Chief and the Secretary have also said barracks is behind recruiting is probably the #1 problem for them to resolve. And if we can give quality barracks to soldiers, we will increase I believe we can entice young Americans to serve our Army. We can retain soldiers. And then if those resources are applied appropriately, families and soldiers will stay. I mean, oftentimes it's been said that we recruit soldiers, but we retain families. And so our focus is to make sure that we have the right things going on, the right resources going into the installations, so that we can attract quality soldiers, we can retain quality soldiers, we can give families a good quality of life. I think the other part of that too is, you know, when soldiers deploy, the one thing they want to do is know that their families are taken care of. And from where we are, from our foxhole, it's about making sure that we do all the things that we can do to provide those resources, those policies, and those programs, and resource those so that our soldiers can have confidence that when they deploy, that their families are taken care of. And our families know that they have tools and programs available to them to help them work through challenges, whether soldiers are here or whether their soldiers are deployed.
Yes, I really love that a lot. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to come sit down with me, and I hope that the rest of your visit at Fort Stewart is very fruitful.
Yeah, well, thanks, Brian. I thank you on behalf of General Vereen, the Deputy G9. I had an opportunity to come to Fort Stewart, an opportunity to see firsthand how you all are doing, and take back some insights and use that as ability to vignettes, as we try to continue to work with the resourcing and trying to make sure that in today's environment, with the challenges that we have, that we can do our best to deliver for our soldiers and our families, the civilians that work on those installations, and the beneficiaries who rely on those services every day, and our installations are able to support. So thanks.
Yes, sir. Couldn't say it better myself.
Okay, all right.